going on?
I'm tired.
Tired?
What's going on with you? Are you tired?
I'm equally as tired. Yeah. As we'll get into here, I just got back from California. I was at ACT Expo and chose the worst possible flights to get in and out of California. It's tough with the time change, as I'm sure you're aware. It's like hard to find a good flight because you either waste an entire day traveling or you have a late night flight and you've got like a red eye flight. So
yeah.
I didn't arrive into California until like 11:30 at night. Didn't get to my hotel till like close to 1 by the time I like got my bags and got the lift to the hotel I was staying at. Was there for ACT Expo and then left California around the same time. So left at like 1 a.m. and then after the time change and everything, didn't arrive back in Columbus till like 10:30 a.m. local time. So like middle of the morning.
Jeez.
So pretty sure I got like a total of like 3 to 4 hours sleeping on flights and stuff. So not great. Finally like getting caught up today.
Well, that's good. I know that we're recording on a Saturday, which typically we record on a Thursday, and
right.
We were supposed to record Thursday night. I kept texting Alex like, hey, ready, let's go, and just no response, or like, hey, I got to do this with our Model 3, and I'm like, I think he's passed out.
Yeah. I told Mallory, I'm like, I'm going to take a quick nap. I got to record the podcast at 8 p.m. And she's like, okay, I'll wake you up. And then she tried waking me up. And then I like showed her my phone with your text. And I'm like, we're going to cancel. So
right.
I was very grateful. So
yeah, but I feel like you jinx it because I do it all the time where I'm like, I'm just going to take a quick nap. And then like 30 years passes by. Like, it's like a new century. Like
wake up with gray hair. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What time is it?
Right.
Yeah. But we are feeling slightly, I'll just say a little rejuvenated today, I would say. So
definitely
good enough energy to get through the episode. So
for sure.
Yeah. But well, I guess we can start off with some EV news, and then we could dive further into your experience with ACT Expo. I think that'd be pretty exciting.
Do it.
But before we get into that, I just want to say people who are watching this on YouTube, if my background looks different, I am in my new studio space.
Yes.
About 99% done. I still have to figure out some lighting, so lighting's a bit rough right now. But hopefully this improves some audio. So
yeah,
yes,
it is tough to have a good like audio setup that's also looks good on video because usually you need a mic like super close to your face, and that's hard to that's hard to make it look good.
Yes. So, yeah, I just have a weird little thing, dropping down on my camera, but that's fine as long as the audio is okay.
Yeah, I've seen some podcasts they have like the handheld mics. I feel like we should get those at some point where you just kind of hold it in front of your face like the whole time. I feel like my arm would get tired though, because I'm sitting at a desk. So
right, I mean, unless there was a way to like attach it directly to the desk where it was like pointing up, but then I guess that's what a tabletop mic would be for.
Yeah.
But I guess we're getting back into like our content production conversations on Living Electric.
Yes.
I think we'll have to circle back on those. But so some exciting news. There was some data announced regarding electric vehicle registrations here in the United States for the first quarter of 2022, and the numbers are extremely impressive.
Yes.
So And I think part of that has to do with the gas prices out there, but I definitely think it's a good mix of having more electric vehicle options as well.
Yeah, I think it's really a combination of all things kind of coming together in the EV space. I have a feeling gas is really high. We've got more options in EVs now. It's not just like the Model 3 or the Nissan Leaf or the Chevy Bolt. Like those were kind of the main three somewhat affordable EVs, and now we've got just so many options out there. But I mean, I don't think we announced even the headline yet, but what's the big news, I guess?
So for Q1 of 2022, EV registration soared to almost 160,000 registrations here in the U.S., which equates to almost 5% of the market, which is just crazy because only a few years ago we were roughly around 1% of the automobile market here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And that's all new registrations, I assume. So that's like new car sales, not the overall market, which is most EVs being sold are going to be new just because they are like the newer technology. Most people are keeping their EVs. They're not selling them. So yeah, it's super exciting. I remember when I first kind of started studying EVs and stuff and getting involved with local groups, that was the goal, is to like increase that new car percentage. And it was sitting around 1%, which is super low, but I mean, that's like nearly a 500% increase in a couple of years, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it's a mixture of having, as you mentioned, like more options available for consumers, really solid options out there in terms of vehicles now. And gas prices, obviously, I'm assuming it's opening people's minds to alternative methods of transportation.
Yep.
And I'm just going to plug our show. I feel like Living Electric might have something to do with it a little bit too. So
I'd like to think we played a small role in somebody buying a new EV. So definitely reach out to us if that's the case, because we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. And another thing too, I think just almost like the rise of content producers as well for electric vehicles has increased sales and awareness as well.
Yeah.
So definitely let us know if we helped you, because that's kind of the whole point of our podcast.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
And I think visibility of like charging networks has gotten a lot better too. Like Electrify America has like been killing it with charging installs. They're like all over the place now, and a lot of other networks are getting built out. So I think people are seeing that that's a possibility. And also I think as more people get them, it kind of accelerates too, because you're like, oh yeah, my friend has one and they have the same kind of like job as me, or same kind of lifestyle as me, and they're doing just fine with an EV. So I think it helps when your friends or like people close to you start getting these, and you start realizing like, oh yeah, like this is it's an easy switch. It's just a couple lifestyle changes, and none for the worse, I don't think, that really make it possible.
Yep. I know I've had a lot of friends actually reach out to me through Facebook and be like, the posts that you're sharing, talking about like transparency with cost of charging and just overall ownership experience is really opening their eyes to like, wow, this is totally doable for us.
Yeah.
The questions we had are being answered. Like, let's have these conversations. So
definitely.
Yeah.
So but super exciting.
Yes. Yeah. So more EVs. It's good.
Yes. And
so go ahead.
Yeah, you want me to get into ACT now?
Yes, I was going to lead into that. I was going to say, speaking of charging infrastructure.
I was going to say, speaking of vehicles, because this was a bigger like vehicle show than anything else. So I was shocked at just how many big rig trucks and big EVs were there. So ACT Expo is Advanced Clean Transportation Expo. It's held in California every year. This year was in Long Beach, but they're actually going to move it to Anaheim next year because the convention center there is bigger, and the show has grown so much that they're running out of space essentially. Like from what I heard, I think there were like 40 different companies on the wait list to even get a booth at this show. So yeah, tons of companies are getting into this space, either on the EV side. Also saw a lot of hydrogen vehicles there, which is interesting. I wish I kind of talked to those groups a little bit more, because I really want to understand that a little bit more, because I know I'm not a huge fan of it, but there may be a business case for it that I'm just not thinking about, and I like to keep an open mind on that stuff. So
yeah, but
overall, just tons of trucks. Like every company you can think of was there with their newest like semi-sized battery electric truck. So just crazy big vehicles. But then there was also some light duty stuff there. So Ford was there with their Lightning. Got to see that in person again. They had a cool little demo set up with the Pro Power, I think is their marketing term for it, like the onboard power to plug stuff in and run tools or whatever. So they had a whole like not a circuit board, I guess, but like basically a panel with a bunch of outlets on it, and they were plugging in a bunch of power tools into it to show like, hey, you can run all this stuff at once, like on this single car, which is really neat.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. So in the big push in EVs right now, not only because the technology is finally there, but also the cost savings is on the fleet side of things. So this really was like a fleet expo more than anything else. So all of these people are trying to sell big numbers of vehicles on the vehicle side to people, and then companies like mine at Shell Recharge are there to support on the software side of kind of having visibility into the data that comes from these vehicles and the chargers that are also charging the vehicles. So a lot of us are kind of working together to make all this work for somebody that wants to electrify their fleet, which is really cool. So lot of neat stuff there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's something we should talk about on Living Electric, like the heavy duty electric vehicles, you know, like the semi trucks and, you know, I know we've talked about electrifying fleets, but I definitely think that if we could talk about it in that aspect, I think that'd be really interesting. Because for me personally, I don't really know too much about that. I'm really more interested in the light duty side, you know, like the vehicle, passenger vehicles, all that stuff. But yeah. So out of all the like heavy duty trucks that you saw, which was one that like stood out to you the most?
Oh gosh. There were a lot of cool ones there. I mean, I feel like a lot of them are pretty similar on the semi side. Like there's a lot of standards, I think, on semis of like how they need to be built and shaped, and like they need certain connections so you can attach trailers and all that stuff. So a lot of them looked really similar. What's the name of the company? Volvo was there, which was pretty cool because that's like traditionally a pretty, like, they make a lot of gas vehicles, so seeing them with a semi EV was pretty cool. And then Nikola was there as well with their Tray EV. Their booth was like right next to ours, so we got to see that, and that was pretty neat. But yeah, I was just impressed at the size of some of these things because I don't like, you're driving on the highway and you see these semis, but like till you're standing next to it, like while it's stationary, you don't realize just how massive these things are. So
yeah, especially when they're indoors.
Yes. Yeah. So that was neat. And then there was a whole line outside too, a bunch of trucks lined up. Outside of semis, I actually saw there was like a bucket truck there, which was pretty neat.
I don't think I know what that is.
A bucket truck?
Yeah.
Like for repairing like utility lines and stuff. Like the person stands with a little bucket and there's like a little arm that goes up. Yeah, electric bucket truck. So that was pretty neat. Just like a lot of different form factors for kind of these medium to heavy duty vehicles that aren't just normal semis. I thought those were probably the coolest. Saw an electric little like digger. I forget what those are called. I'm trying to think. It's just got like the little shovel on the front that like pulls stuff up. So like a backhoe or something. I can't remember. Bulldozer. Yeah.
Yes. See. Okay. So yeah, everybody listening, it's clear that we're clearly focused on the light duty side of things.
Yes.
Well, we'll get to the heavy duty stuff. So yeah, bulldozer.
Yeah. I need to put on some more blue collars every once in a while, I think. Yeah, it was more of like a little excavator, I think is the name for it, because it was smaller. It wasn't like a fully like big rig one.
They remind me of Wally.
It was like a little like garden sized one for like smaller jobs. So that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
A lot of companies did something really cool, and they put mirrors underneath their vehicles. So that when you're walking by, you didn't have to like bend over to like look underneath the vehicle. You could just like see all the parts and pieces on the bottom. Because a lot of them had like the stuff opened up. It wasn't like sealed on the bottom, so you could see the components on the inside.
For display purposes.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't very clear about that. They had mirrors on the floor that were like facing up, so you could see below the vehicle.
I was like to reflect heat for battery like thermal management. Like, that was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That way you're not kind of like, you know, getting on the floor to like look underneath.
Right. So that's cool.
That's cool.
Bollinger was there. I don't know if you've seen one of their vehicles in person before.
No, I haven't. I was just about to ask if they were there.
They are built like a tank. I'll tell you what. Like they had their truck there, and then they had their longer like commercial platform was out as well, and they're just like solid. Like everything's metal, like almost fully metal construction on their truck. Like everything's very manual. They've got like their shifter and everything is like a big knob still. It's really interesting. Like looks like a hand built vehicle, but like incredibly high quality. So. That was interesting because I hadn't seen those in person yet. Yeah.
Are they big, like in person? Like,
yeah, they're pretty big. Yeah, it's like a full-size truck.
Okay.
It's is it full cab if it's got 4 seats? Is that right?
Yes, I think so. I've heard the term super cab, but I think full cab.
Yeah, but it's got like a full-size back seat. It's essentially like an SUV with the bed on it, so...
I think we mentioned at the beginning of this episode we're tired, so like let's just pin that on the reason why we definitely. Yeah,
Not the fact that I've never driven a truck in my life.
Right. Yeah, and you guys are getting a Lightning soon, so you'll have to learn
yeah.
all this terminology.
Yeah. Gonna be great.
We'll have to get somebody that has industry and experience with this.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely agree.
Well, that's pretty cool with the Bollinger. I've been wanting to see that. I've just been like curious to know when it's gonna like go into production.
Yeah,
because they're based out of the Detroit area, if I remember.
So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about was Lordstown there with their endurance?
Yes, yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, Ohio company. So I went and chatted with them for a little bit. I guess they're entering production towards the end of this year.
Yes.
Because they've had some shuffling because they sold the building, I think, to who'd they sell it to?
Foxconn.
Foxconn, yeah, I was gonna say it's whoever makes iPhones. So I'm pretty
Yes.
sure Foxconn does that, right?
Yep.
So they sold it to Foxconn, and Foxconn essentially is going to be building the vehicles, but they'll still be under the Lordstown brand. So I asked some questions about the wheels actually because I've been curious about that. They don't have normal motors like other EVs. They have the hub motors. Mm-hmm. So essentially the motor is inside of the wheel, and they said it does save on some like it's a little bit more efficient, which is good. But talking about some of the repairs, it seems a little weird. So like tires are the same, but like if you were going to replace a rim or do any brake work or anything like that, like you essentially have to disassemble like most of the wheel, which sounds kind of like a pain.
Oh.
But that was interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's another technology that like I haven't done much like digging into is like hub motors.
Yeah.
Because like I know that's like relatively common for like I believe like implementations for like for toys, if I remember. Like I think like a lot of like AC powered toys or like RC cars, they have like the hub motors. So like it's really interesting. I know riding in the endurance prototype that I got a chance to last fall, you could feel the power difference with like the independent motors.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, which was pretty cool. But that's interesting from like a maintenance standpoint.
That's the only part I was worried about. I only know like a little bit about the difference because I was looking into buying an electric skateboard. And that's like a big split amongst electric skateboard is whether you get a hub motor skateboard or a like gear motor skateboard where like the motor is separate and you've got like a belt drive to like actually turn the wheels.
Yeah.
So the hub motors are more efficient and the hub motors are more efficient, but the belt drive are generally have a little bit more torque and more power behind them. So that's kind of like what you're choosing. But also the hub motors, like you have to essentially replace the entire motor if you want a new tire. So that's initially why I asked him about it, because I knew there was some like maintenance issues or maintenance difficulties with that. So
yeah,
I'm curious how that'll all pan out once they're kind of on the road. But they said they're targeting I think 500 by the end of the year, so not a huge number. It's kind of like their initial run to figure out how it's going to work and then adjust things. But yeah, that was cool to see too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know that one's been a long time coming, and I know a lot of people who are like hardcore Lordstown fans are waiting for it. So I'm just, for the sake of like the Youngstown, Ohio area and the Lordstown area, I've been like rooting for them to succeed because like I have friends that live in that area and I've seen how that has impacted their economy. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to see that come to market.
Yep, I agree. Trying to think of anything else I saw that was interesting. I got to see so like at Shell Recharge we don't manufacture our own hardware. We source it from other charging vendors. So all of the vendors that we use were there, which was really cool because I actually got to see a lot of these chargers in person for the first time. Because I work remotely, I haven't been like out to anywhere where we were testing the chargers and anything like that. I've seen a couple of them out in person, but I got to see our entire like hardware offering essentially. So a lot of the vendors were super nice and like opened up the cabinets on the chargers, explained all the different parts. Like, hey, here's how you repair this. If you need to swap cables, you pull this out and undo this screw and like swap the cable out. So a lot of that stuff was really cool for my engineering mind to to see. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like out of like the charging technology that you got a chance to see there, was there anything that like really stood out to you to like what we can expect?
Not necessarily. I'll just say that like I feel like everybody's doing charging slightly differently, and I don't think anybody's 100% figured it out like what's the best solution. So
Yeah.
I'll just say that because like we saw the Electrify America stations there, and they had a great booth like with their new stations laying out there, and they're going like single CCS port for all of their new stations, and that's it. And like we saw some other stations that still had CCS CHAdeMO, and we saw different cable lengths. We saw different cable management. We saw like all kinds of this different stuff. So I think it's like I was telling people like Tesla has a clear advantage on the charging side because every vehicle they make, the charge port's in the same spot. They use the same charge port or the same charging plug for every vehicle. They can mass produce those things really easily because they control the vehicle as well. They don't just control the charging. And with some of these others, it's kind of like you've got to cater to the least common denominator, I guess. Is that the right term for that? Where like any vehicle that pulls up is still going to be able to charge. So you got to make cables that are really long. If like a bigger truck pulls up, you've got to make the port. You've got to have port flexibility. If a Nissan Leaf pulls up, you still want to support it versus a new Rivian pulling up. So all these different things you got to consider, and then also like the cable sizes and stuff. Like you've got to make sure they're not too heavy that somebody can't physically lift it and plug it into their car. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff like really needs to be thought about on the charging side. And like I said, I don't think anybody's fully figured it out and said, all right, we're just sticking with this. We're putting this everywhere. That's going to work for everybody. Like, I don't think anybody's really figured that out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that's hard in terms of like hardware limitations because like certain chargers obviously are more powerful than like other ones. So like, I'm sure cable length and, thickness of the cable goes into like consideration if it's like a 350 kilowatt station. Like,
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many like physical limitations there, but
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure as things like improve, in terms of like technology, we'll start seeing like slimmer cables, similar to like what we see at Superchargers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, accessibility, like that is a big factor into whether or not somebody can plug in their vehicle.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was there in spirit because like I was checking out like the Facebook posts that I was seeing, the LinkedIn posts. Like it seemed like a really well attended event, which is really cool
Definitely.
to see.
That was probably the coolest part is everybody there like was excited about EVs, and most of the conversations I had, people had progressed past the EV basics and like knew they wanted EVs. It was more specifically like, what can your company do to help us? Or like, what specifically does your company do in this space? Like most people understood EVs, they understood charging at least on a basic level, and that was really cool to see. And I've mentioned that many times before where like people are starting to learn the basic stuff and we can skip past all the like education part initially and talk about like, all right, what's the best route to go now versus like EVs, yes or no. So so that's been that was exciting too.
So I actually have a two-part question for you because you actually just brought up a really interesting point that everybody in attendance seemed like they understood the basics of EVs, what it takes to charge up an electric vehicle, and the big transition point when it comes to like owning electric vehicles is obviously with the public, getting like everyday drivers into this. So when it comes to like the education standpoint and like your experience in like a professional role, how do you feel that differs when like somebody looking to electrify their fleet versus somebody who's just coming off the street walking into a dealership? Like, could you take any of those training points and kind of like turn it into like an everyday driver?
Yeah, what's interesting is like everyday drivers are thinking about different things that fleets are thinking about. So like fleets are thinking about, all right, how do I build my charging infrastructure so that vehicles are ready to go for these shifts and these shifts? Are the vehicles like capable enough to handle these certain shifts with this certain payload driving from this distance or this location to this location? Can the range handle that? And then like matching charging to that. Whereas on the passenger side, I feel like people are kind of thinking about similar things where it's like, can I get a vehicle that can do everything I need to do? So, generally in a fleet, it's a lot more focused for like, I just need a vehicle that does this and it does this really well and I can plug it in and it charges up enough in between the shifts or the duty cycle for that vehicle. Whereas with like a passenger vehicle, I feel like it's all over the place. You kind of want a vehicle that can do everything you need to do driving wise. That's why like we buy so many SUVs in the US, is because everybody wants these big vans that are these big vehicles that can store things if they need to, but also can throw a bunch of people in the back if they're driving a large amount of people around. So I think it's very similar. And the nice thing is like the charging is a lot easier on the home side because you're not running your vehicle 24/7. So you literally have that kind of fallback of charging every night. Whereas some of these fleets, they are literally running vehicles 24/7. So they have multiple shifts that they're running these vehicles essentially into the ground. Like they're buying these to like for a business case. So some of those differences are interesting, but most of the people I talked to at the show were all very fleet focused. So you could tell like that's the stuff they were thinking about is like, can this vehicle do what I need to do? Can this software do what I need to do? Like they've already got their business figured out. It's just working on kind of transitioning it to electric now.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. Like, obviously, like, I understand, like, the whole point that, like, it's very, like, a targeted approach to, like, what you need a vehicle to do.
Right.
I'm just curious if, like, if there's a way that, like, educating everyday drivers could be similar to that. Like,
oh, absolutely. I mean, you probably see it anytime you chat with somebody that's new to EVs. It's like, all right, well, if this works for my personal use, like, can this transition to bigger vehicles? So the thing I've noticed across the industry is anybody that drives an EV like day to day understands this stuff like a lot better than somebody that might not. Not that you can't learn it or that you can't know it just as well, but that's been a clear like kind of denominator is like, all right, if you drive an EV for home, like you understand the use case where EVs are going to work out the best and like what portions of a business might work best for transitioning to EVs. So I think just having that experience, understanding like what the charging experience is like how to make that easier, design of charging, like all that stuff really plays a role.
Yeah. Kind of just goes back to education, you know, like you mentioned, like education through experience and just getting that opportunity to learn about, you know, your vehicle or like what it can offer.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That's like one of the things I tell any of our new employees is like, if you can, like go rent an EV for a few days and just live with it and see like what it's like. Cause that'll give you more experience than any like reading anything or watching any videos or anything like that. Actually physically doing some of that stuff and trying out charging and driving around an EV and seeing how it handles certain situations. Like you really start to learn a lot versus what you can read or watch a video of.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually was a video idea that I thought of, like allowing a friend who is, you know, just like really interested in EVs, but like hasn't taken that jump yet. So they're still driving gas.
Right.
Give them an EV for like a week and just film, kind of like almost like document like how they transition,
cool.
like whether at the end of the week, do they hate it? Do they love it? Like what did they learn? Because like, I think that would be good for people who are curious about it, but you know, don't have the opportunity to either purchase one or rent one. You know, they can kind of like see what that's like.
Right.
Yeah. More butts and seats, as the industry says.
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like it was a great conference. It
was. Yeah. Met a lot of cool people. Everybody I talked to is trying to get into this space, and I was encouraged that a lot of people were on the electric side of things, because this expo, I guess 5 or 6 years ago, was mostly like compressed natural gas and like all this other kind of like alternative fuels. And now it's really transitioning into like the truly like cleaner fuels, I feel like, that aren't burning stuff. So that made me feel better.
Oh, good. Yeah, actually, speaking of burning things, it's not necessarily talking about burning things, but were there any like solar companies there? Like, was there anything with power generation?
Not really. It wasn't as much on that side because it really was on the transportation side of things. I did see the Edison vehicle. Have you seen that one before?
It sounds familiar.
It's the Edison Future, I think is what it's called. It looks kind of like a Cybertruck, ironically.
Oh, yes. That's the one. Okay, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. It has that, like, the shield that goes over the back of it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
It actually looks pretty cool. Oh,
yeah,
really?
That was there. That was, like, very striking. I wish I had some more time to spend at that booth, but, Yeah, that vehicle's huge. Like that was easily the biggest like light duty, if you can even call it that, truck that was there.
Yeah, so, that thing looks huge. That's not a 6x6, is it?
No.
Okay.
No, it's only got 4.
Okay. 4 wheels.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't remember if it was similar to like the Mercedes 6x6 where it has like 3 wheels on each side.
Yeah.
Like, that thing's a beast. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Was there any EV light duty or heavy duty that like you were just shocked to see that was there?
Not necessarily. A lot of stuff I had either seen before or heard about. Nothing was like, oh, I've never seen that before, which was good, I guess, because that means I'm doing my research properly and staying up to date on things. But no, not necessarily. I did see like even some light duty vehicles there, like Nissan was there with their Leafs.
Was the Aria there?
No, the Aria was not there, which I guess was kind of odd. You'd think they'd have that out there. But Nissan still sticking with CHAdeMO.
Yes.
I was chatting about that with some people. I'm like, that's one of the few vehicles that they're still selling like new model years of that has CHAdeMO on it. So hoping they switch that soon or retire the Leaf and like switch over to something else. But I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I do know that the Aria is confirmed to have green CCS, charging. Yes. And I do know that they are rumored to actually replace the Leaf with a crossover. So
I heard that. Yeah.
Hopefully
I'm hoping they go through with that.
Yes. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I will say that is one benefit about being in the industry is like, working in the industry is getting a chance to go to these conferences and like seeing these, future cars and these different implementations and yeah, it's cool.
It is for sure. Speaking of CCS.
Oh no.
Should I get into the CCS adapter?
For some reason, I thought of the programming language. I always like get that mixed up with CSS. I'm just kidding. That was a bad joke. Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about the adapter. I want to hear about this.
Yeah. So video hopefully coming this week. So I don't want to spoil everything. But anyway, I was able to get my hands on a CCS adapter, an official Tesla one from South Korea, because that's the only market they're selling it in right now. And this is for those that don't know, because I posted like a tweet about it, and so many Tesla owners don't realize that there are other charge ports out there. So, I mean, for those that don't know, like CCS is the dominant DC fast charging protocol, the dominant plug for everything non-Tesla. So for ChargeWay, it's the green plug, and it's basically everywhere that Tesla isn't. So the advantage of this really is like we've got, if there is an adapter to use those stations, then that opens up a ton of more possibilities for charging your Tesla. Like right now you're kind of stuck to fast charging on Tesla Superchargers, which like I said earlier is fine. They have a great charging experience, but if you're in an area or taking a route where there isn't a supercharger, this might open up some more options. Or if like you don't want to stop where the supercharger is at and you want to stop where the Electrify America station is at, you can stop at the EA station if you've got an adapter like this. So anyway, was able to get my hands on one and actually just came from testing it this morning, and it does work on certain cars. So the only way to really check is to go into your software tab on your settings if you drive a Tesla, and click on additional vehicle information, and that'll bring up a little screen, and it'll show you like what computer you have in your car, like what modem you have, like a bunch of other information. And it'll say CCS adapter support on there. So if you've got CCS adapter support, then you can use that adapter at a non-Tesla fast charger, which is really cool. So we went and tested it at an EA station here in Columbus, plugged in. Great experience. Like EA stations were super to use. They're up and running just fine. Plugged in, started the charge. I mean, it worked as expected. So
that's awesome.
We tried it on a 2021 Model 3, and then we actually met up with somebody at the Tesla event prior to that, and he had a Plaid. So we actually brought the Plaid over there and tested it with the Plaid as well, and it worked on that. So
nice.
Worked on 2 different Tesla vehicles. And then I tried it on my car, which does not have CCS adapter support, and got it plugged in. Like the adapter still works obviously for like physically, but then as soon as I plugged in, it said like connecting to vehicle, and it does like the loading screen on EA, and it just kept circling like it never connected. So that is the thing. There's more than just like a physical like charger connection or electrical connection for charging. There is like a handshake that kind of occurs like software wise between the vehicle and the charger. So my car just does not have that chip, or that, I think it's the charge port ECU that you need to connect to these CCS stations. So that is what I'm looking at getting updated at some point when they roll this out in the US. But I have the adapter. I just need to get that CCS support on my car now. But
hey, one part of the puzzle.
Yes.
Or one piece of the puzzle. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's really going to open up like charging opportunities for the entire, country. Yeah.
And I think that will push more people to get into charging too, because like it or not, Tesla is still the dominant EV in the US. So that was a big reason a lot of people pushed to put CHAdeMO in initially, because they're like, oh, a Tesla can charge here. I want to put a Tesla charger in. And it's like, oh, well, you can, but they need an adapter, and that means that the owner bought this $450 adapter, and like they're able to charge on this, and it's kind of and it's limited to like really low charging speeds and and all that stuff. So the CCS adapter, luckily, it's a passive adapter, so it's a lot smaller, it's a lot cheaper, and you can use it a lot more places because the CCS is like everywhere, and the charging speeds aren't limited. So I think it's overall going to be a positive thing. I don't know. Have you seen any backlash from people kind of being annoyed that like, oh, now Teslas are going to take over EA stations and like make them crowded?
Yeah, I mean that is actually a concern of mine, to be honest. I'm not as vocal as some people are, but like, I have seen some complaints about that. But my only thing, I guess this is my only gripe with that, is that compared to like the Supercharger network, where you have like a minimum of at least 6 stations or 8, whatever. There's so many more chargers at a location on a supercharger, at a supercharger versus like an EA where there might only be like 4. Yeah. And, with the amount of like other non-Tesla EVs that are out there now, it's like, yeah, I get it. Like it opens up like those different corridors for Tesla drivers. Yeah. But at the same time, like, yeah, that's my only gripe. But Tesla's resolving that by eventually adding CCS adapters to superchargers. Mm-hmm. So Elon confirmed that this week that's going to happen at some point. Yeah. But to circle back, I have seen people at least cautious about it. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like, I feel like there's been more superchargers full up than EA stations full up. I don't know how true that is, if that's just like my personal experience, but obviously, I see that through the lens of a Tesla owner who's probably more focused on Tesla stations, but that at least seems to be my what I've noticed is generally the superchargers have more cars at them than EA stations.
Yes.
So
yeah.
But that's like I said, I feel like it's going to overall be a net positive. People are going to realize we need a heck of a lot more chargers than we have. Like just connecting highways is not going to be enough anymore. People want options for charging along those highways. They want them at multiple exits. Like, we're still going to need to build it out significantly more than we have right now. Even with like home charging and all that stuff, like people still travel in cars long distance. So we need that huge network support. So,
yep. Yeah. I know for me, I am interested in that adapter. So I want to learn more about it.
And yours doesn't have support, right? I think I texted you about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we confirmed it does not. I was hoping with it being a 2021, it would. That way it just made that easier. Yeah. But I'm in the same boat as you.
Yeah, there is a like DIY workaround that I read some threads on, but I'm very cautious to make any kind of DIY charge port ECU changes on my car and like void a warranty or something. So I did text with Tesla service a little bit, and they did confirm that there's going to be a retrofit of some sort when that adapter does come out. And if it goes anything like the European adapter did, they will include the retrofit with the purchase of the adapter. So
sweet.
it's kind of like if you buy HomeLink, like for the garage door opener for a Model 3 or Y, they will include the installation with the purchase. So I have a feeling it's probably going to be like $250 to $300 for the adapter. They'll throw in the upgrade you need for it and go from there. So
That's nice. I have a feeling that's going to sell out pretty quickly.
I have a feeling that's why I picked one up. I'm like, I'm going to get ahead of the curve here, and hopefully I can get that upgrade to eventually be able to use it. So,
well, that's awesome. Yeah. So when do you think your video is going to come out?
I'm probably going to be working on it throughout this week. So hopefully by next weekend, just kind of talking about like, what is this thing? Like, what do you use it for? And how does it work on Teslas? And then some of the gaps among everything as well. So
nice.
Just kind of giving a brief overview, kind of mini review of it. Cause there is some like physical things on the chargers that are kind of neat and interesting, of like how it plugs in and, how it connects to the CCS, plug, I guess. Cause it does have like a built-in locking mechanism. So you don't need that like 3D printed piece, like on the J plug connectors.
Yeah.
So that part will be nice. And then, what was the other thing I was going to talk about? I can't remember. Lost my train of thought there.
Oh no. Well, I mean,
something adapter related, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's good to hear that they have like a locking mechanism.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because I mean, most CCS vehicles, like, it locks to the car, so like it's good to hear that Tesla thought about that.
Yes, yeah. The one thing we did test is like having it all locked to the car. The guy I was working with to use his car for testing earlier, he like walked away so that the car locked, and I like tried to unplug it, and it doesn't lock down completely where you can't stop charging. So when you do press on the button to like unlock it, it'll cut charging because it thinks you're trying to unplug, but you can't physically like pull the charger off of the car.
Oh,
which
interesting.
Is kind of like dumb, I guess.
Yeah.
Because like somebody could easily still walk up and like unplug your car to stop you charging. So that part's a little frustrating.
Yeah, I had a question, but you go because I think you're going to answer it in the video. So,
what I was going to say earlier is the one thing I didn't test and I need to go do later today is try on a regular J plug. So without the full CCS plug and see if just the AC part works.
Oh.
Because this is a fully like passive adapter. There's no electronics or anything in it. So I'm assuming the pin mapping is the same and it can pass through and be used on a regular like level 2 charger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well,
I got to try
better go out there and try it.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, now I want to learn more about this adapter, so I'll definitely look for your video. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Alex's YouTube channel because that video is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's done like a full breakdown on it either of like everything about it. So I'm trying to be one of the first to do that. So
nice.
What else? Did you have another question?
No, I don't want to ask it now because I've actually already forgot what it was, but I'm sure you'll answer it in the video.
That's the goal.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think that's it for this episode. I don't have any other topics. Probably gonna go take a nap.
Good call.
Yeah. Unless you have any other things you want to talk about.
No, I think that was about it. I feel like I hogged a lot of this episode, so we'll have to think of some topics for you next episode.
Right. No, I mean, it's interesting to hear about ACT Expo and, just like the CCS adapter, because like this industry is continuously moving forward fast. So whenever like one of us gets a chance to be at a conference that like the other one can't be at, it's always good to hear about that because it keeps everybody in the loop. So
definitely.
Yeah. So plus I talk a lot too, so it's good to rest my voice.
Sounds good. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you have any questions about either the CCS adapter, probably wait for my video first and then send me questions. Or ACT Expo or anything else, or something you want to hear us talk about on the podcast, definitely reach out. Look forward to hearing from you.
Yep. And thank you for living the electric life.